From a young age, I was captivated by the tales of Callicrate's cave, nestled deep within the rugged mountains of Greece. It was a place shrouded in mystery and fear, where it was said that those who dared to enter never returned. The elders of our village would speak in hushed tones about an ancient evil that dwelled in the shadows of the cave, but no one knew for certain what it was. This enigma gnawed at my curiosity, and as the years passed, my desire to uncover the truth only grew stronger. My earliest memory of hearing about the cave was from my grandfather, George, a stern but kind man who had lived in the village all his life. He would often gather the children around the fireplace on cold winter nights and tell us stories of the cave. "Listen well, children," he would begin, his voice low and gravelly. "Callicrate's cave is not a place for the faint of heart. Many have entered its dark maw, seeking treasure or adventure, but none have ever emerged. They say an ancient curse lies within, a curse that devours the souls of the unwary." I remember the way the flames danced in his eyes as he spoke, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The other children would gasp and huddle closer together, but I was always more intrigued than frightened. What could possibly be so terrifying that it would prevent anyone from returning? As I grew older, my fascination with the cave only intensified. I would spend hours in the village library, poring over old maps and manuscripts, trying to piece together the history of Callicrates. There were few records, and most were vague or contradictory. Some spoke of a great beast that guarded a hidden treasure, while others mentioned a powerful sorcerer who had sealed himself within the cave to escape his enemies. One particularly rainy afternoon, I found an old journal tucked away in a dusty corner of the library. It belonged to a man named Thomas, an explorer who had visited the village nearly a century ago. The journal was filled with sketches and notes about his travels, but what caught my eye was a detailed account of his attempt to explore Callicrate's cave. June 15th, 1923, the entry began. "I have reached the village of Callicrates, where the locals speak of a cave that no man dares enter. They say it is cursed, that those who venture inside are never seen again. I intend to discover the truth behind these superstitions." As I read on, my heart raced with excitement. Thomas described his preparations, his conversations with the villagers, and finally, his entry into the cave. His last entry was chilling. "The darkness is overwhelming. I can hear strange noises, like whispers in the shadows. My lantern flickers. I fear I may not return." The journal ended abruptly, with no further entries. Thomas had vanished, just like the others, but his account only fueled my determination. I knew I had to see the cave for myself, to understand what had happened to him and all the others who had disappeared. Over the years, I spoke with many of the village elders, trying to glean any additional information. One of them, an old woman named Martha, shared a particularly eerie story. "It was many years ago," she said, her voice trembling with age. "A group of young men, full of bravado, decided to explore the cave. They laughed at the warnings, saying it was all nonsense, but they never came back. We searched for weeks, but it was as if the earth had swallowed them whole." Martha's story was not unique. There were countless tales of lost adventurers, of families torn apart by grief. Yet, despite the fear and tragedy, my curiosity remained undiminished. I felt a strange connection to the cave, as if it were calling to me, beckoning me to uncover its secrets. In my late 20s, I began to seriously consider the possibility of exploring Callicrate's cave myself. I knew it would be dangerous, perhaps even fatal, but the allure of the unknown was too strong to resist. I spent years preparing, gathering equipment, studying survival techniques, and learning everything I could about spelunking. By the time I turned 30, I was ready. The cave had haunted my dreams and occupied my thoughts for too long. It was time to face my fears and discover the truth behind the legends. Little did I know, my journey into the heart of Callicrate's cave would change my life forever. Turning 30 felt like a milestone, a pivotal moment where I needed to confront the fears and curiosities that had lingered in the back of my mind for so long. The legends of Callicrate's cave had haunted me since childhood, and I knew that if I didn't act now, I might never have the courage to do so again. The decision to explore the cave wasn't made lightly. It was the culmination of years of fascination, research, and preparation. One crisp autumn morning, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at a map of the region. The cave was marked with a small, ominous X, nestled deep within the mountain range. I had everything I needed: a sturdy backpack filled with supplies, a high-powered lantern, extra batteries, a camera to document my journey, and a detailed plan. But the most important thing I carried was my unwavering determination. As I packed my gear, my mind wandered to the conversations I had had with my family and friends. They had been supportive, albeit concerned. My mother, Mary, had been particularly worried. "John, are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. "You've heard the stories. People don't come back from that place." I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Mom, I have to do this. It's been a part of me for as long as I can remember. I need to know the truth." My father, Robert, was more pragmatic. "Just promise me you'll be careful. Take all the necessary precautions. And if things start to look bad, don't be a hero. Get out of there." "I promise, Dad," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. My best friend, Mark, had a different approach. "You know, you're absolutely nuts for doing this," he said with a grin. "But I guess that's why we get along so well. Just make sure you come back in one piece, all right?" I chuckled. "Don't worry, Mark. I'll bring back a souvenir." The night before my departure, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with thoughts of what I might encounter. Would I find evidence of the ancient evil the villagers spoke of? Or would I simply find an empty, silent cave, its secrets lost to time? The uncertainty was both thrilling and terrifying. At dawn, I set out on my journey. The village was still asleep, the streets quiet and empty. As I walked through the familiar paths, I felt a sense of finality, as if I were crossing a threshold into a new chapter of my life. The mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks shrouded in mist, and the path to the cave seemed to beckon me forward. The hike to Calicrate's cave was arduous, but the breathtaking scenery provided a welcome distraction from my nerves. The trail wound through dense forests, over rocky outcrops, and along narrow ridges. As I climbed higher, the air grew thinner and colder, but my resolve never wavered. Several hours into the hike, I reached a small clearing with a stunning view of the valley below. I decided to take a short break, sitting on a fallen log and sipping from my water bottle. As I rested, I couldn't help but think about the countless adventurers who had come before me, their fates unknown. What drove them to enter the cave? Was it curiosity, greed, or something else entirely? Lost in thought, I almost didn't notice the figure approaching from the trail below. It was an elderly man, his face weathered and lined with age. He carried a walking stick and wore a simple, worn coat. As he drew closer, I recognized him as Elias, one of the village's oldest residents. "Elias," I greeted him, surprised. "What are you doing out here?" He smiled, his eyes twinkling with a mix of wisdom and mischief. "I could ask you the same question, John, but I think I already know the answer." I nodded, feeling a sudden kinship with this man who had seen so much. "I'm going to the cave, Elias. I need to see it for myself." He sighed, looking out over the valley. "Many have gone before you, my boy. None have returned, but I can see the determination in your eyes. Just remember, the cave is not just a place of darkness. It holds the echoes of many lives, many stories. Respect it, and perhaps it will show you mercy." His words resonated with me, adding a layer of solemnity to my quest. "Thank you, Elias. I'll remember that." With a final nod, Elias continued on his way, leaving me alone with my thoughts once more. His presence had been a reminder of the gravity of my decision, but it also strengthened my resolve. I gathered my belongings and resumed my hike, the path growing steeper and more treacherous as I neared the cave. By late afternoon, I finally reached the entrance of Calicrate's cave. The opening was a dark, gaping maw in the mountainside, framed by jagged rocks and overgrown with vines. It exuded an aura of foreboding, as if warning intruders to stay away. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what lay ahead. "All right, John," I muttered to myself. "This is it. Time to face the unknown. With one last glance at the sunlit world behind me, I switched on my lantern and stepped into the darkness, leaving the safety of the familiar behind. The air inside the cave was cool and damp, carrying a faint earthy smell. As the light from my lantern pierced the gloom, I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The journey had begun, and there was no turning back now. Stepping into the cave was like crossing an invisible barrier between two worlds. The light from my lantern carved a narrow path through the oppressive darkness, illuminating the rough, damp walls and revealing the intricate patterns of mineral deposits that glistened like tiny stars. The air was thick and musty, carrying the scent of earth and decay, and each breath felt heavier than the last. The entrance quickly narrowed into a tight corridor, forcing me to crouch as I navigated through the jagged rocks. The silence was absolute, broken only by the echo of my footsteps and the occasional drip of water from the ceiling. It was as if the cave itself was holding its breath, waiting to see what I would do next. As I moved deeper, the passage widened into a larger chamber. Here, the walls were covered in strange, ancient markings, symbols, and drawings that hinted at a forgotten time. I paused to study them, running my fingers over the rough carvings. Some depicted scenes of hunting and gathering, while others showed figures in worship, their hands raised toward a central figure that seemed to radiate power. Could this be the creature the villagers spoke of, the ancient evil that guarded the cave? I took out my camera and began to document the markings, knowing that these images might be the only evidence of my journey if I didn't make it back. The flash of the camera briefly illuminated the chamber, casting eerie shadows that danced on the walls. Each click of the shutter echoed like a gunshot, amplifying my sense of isolation. Continuing on, I noticed the air growing colder and more humid. The walls glistened with moisture, and a thin layer of mist began to form near the ground. My lantern's beam seemed to struggle against the encroaching darkness, and I felt a chill run down my spine. It was as if the cave itself was alive, watching me, waiting for me to make a mistake. I pressed on, my senses heightened by the oppressive atmosphere. Every sound, every movement seemed magnified. At one point, I thought I heard a faint whisper, a soft murmur that seemed to emanate from the very walls. I stopped and listened, straining to hear, but the sound was gone as quickly as it had come. Was it just my imagination, or was there something more sinister at play? As I ventured further, the cave began to twist and turn, creating a labyrinth of passages that seemed to go on forever. I marked my path with chalk, drawing arrows on the walls to ensure I wouldn't get lost. The deeper I went, the more I felt a growing sense of unease. It was as if the cave was deliberately trying to disorient me, to lead me astray. At one point, I reached a fork in the path. The left passage was narrow and steep, while the right was wider but seemed to slope downward at a precarious angle. I hesitated, trying to decide which way to go. Remembering Elias's words about respecting the cave, I chose the left passage, hoping that my instincts would guide me true. The narrow passage forced me to crawl on my hands and knees, the rough rock scraping against my skin. The air was stifling, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I had to remind myself to stay calm, to keep moving forward. Panic would only make things worse. Finally, the passage opened up into another chamber, this one larger and more imposing than the last. Stalactites hung from the ceiling like jagged teeth, and the floor was littered with small, sharp rocks that crunched underfoot. In the center of the chamber, a pool of water reflected the light from my lantern, casting shimmering patterns on the walls. The water was perfectly still, its surface like a mirror. I approached the pool, feeling a strange compulsion to look into its depths. As I peered into the water, I saw my own reflection staring back at me, distorted by the ripples. But there was something else, a shadowy figure that seemed to move just beneath the surface. I blinked and the figure was gone, leaving me to wonder if I had imagined it. Shaking off the eerie feeling, I continued my exploration. The cave seemed to go on forever, each chamber leading to another, each passage more convoluted than the last. Time lost all meaning as I delved deeper into the darkness. My lantern's light grew dimmer, and I realized with a start that I was running low on batteries. I quickly replaced them, the fresh light a small comfort in the oppressive gloom. As I navigated through another narrow passage, I felt a sudden rush of cold air, as if a door had been opened to the outside world. The air carried a faint metallic smell, and I realized with a jolt that I was not alone. I could hear the faint sound of breathing, slow and deliberate, echoing through the passage. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" Silence. The only response was the echo of my own voice, bouncing back at me from the walls. I took a deep breath and continued forward, my senses on high alert. The passage opened up into yet another chamber, and this time, I saw something that made my blood run cold. In the center of the chamber, partially obscured by shadows, was a figure. It was tall and imposing, its skin a mottled gray that seemed to blend with the rock. It stood perfectly still, watching me with a single, unblinking eye that glowed with an eerie light. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that I had found the source of the legends, the ancient evil that the villagers had spoken of. The creature was real, and it was watching me. I took a step back, my mind racing. What should I do? Run? Try to communicate? The creature made no move to attack. But its presence was overwhelming, a tangible force that filled the chamber with an aura of dread. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the sound of my own heartbeat. The creature remained silent, its eye fixed on me. I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me, as if the creature was trying to communicate without words. It was a moment of profound connection, a silent exchange that transcended language. I took another step forward, my fear slowly giving way to curiosity. The creature's eye followed my every move, but it made no attempt to stop me. I realized that I had reached a turning point in my journey. Whatever happened next would determine the outcome of my quest. The moment I stepped into the chamber, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over me. The creature stood motionless, its massive frame blending seamlessly with the rocky surroundings. It was taller than any human, towering at least 10 feet high, with a single, unblinking eye that glowed with an eerie, unnatural light. Its skin was rough and mottled, resembling the texture of the cave walls, and its presence exuded an aura of ancient power and menace. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to process what I was seeing. This was no ordinary creature. It was something out of myth and legend, a being that should not exist in the modern world. Yet here it was, standing before me in the depths of Calicrate's cave. My mind raced with questions. What was it? How had it survived for so long? And most importantly, what did it want from me? The creature's eye followed my every move, its gaze intense and unyielding. I took a cautious step forward, my lantern casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. The creature remained still, watching me with a mixture of curiosity and caution. I could feel its presence like a physical weight, pressing down on me and making it difficult to breathe. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible in the vast chamber. To my surprise, the creature responded, not with words, but with a low, rumbling growl that seemed to emanate from deep within its chest. The sound was both terrifying and fascinating, a primal communication that sent shivers down my spine. I realized that this being was not just a mindless beast. It possessed intelligence, perhaps even wisdom. Summoning all my courage, I took another step forward. "I mean you no harm," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I came here to learn the truth about this cave. Can you understand me?" The creature tilted its head slightly, as if considering my words. Its eye never left mine, and I felt a strange connection forming between us, a silent understanding that transcended language. It was as if the creature could see into my very soul, weighing my intentions and deciding whether I was friend or foe. For a moment, we stood in silence, the only sound the distant drip of water echoing through the chamber. Then, slowly, the creature took a step toward me. Its movements were deliberate and measured, each step causing the ground to tremble slightly. I held my breath, unsure of what to expect. As it drew closer, I could see more details of its form. Its skin was covered in thick, rough scales, and its limbs were muscular and powerful. Despite its fearsome appearance, there was something almost regal about the creature, a sense of ancient majesty that commanded respect. When it was just a few feet away, the creature stopped and lowered its head, bringing its eye level with mine. I could see my reflection in its eye, a tiny, trembling figure dwarfed by the immense presence before me. The creature's breath was warm and smelled faintly of earth and stone. In that moment, I felt a surge of bravery. "My name is John," I said, my voice firmer now. "I came here to understand the mysteries of this cave. Can you help me?" The creature blinked slowly, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of recognition in its eye. It raised one massive hand and pointed to the far side of the chamber, where a narrow passageway led deeper into the cave. I understood that it was guiding me, showing me the way forward. "Thank you," I said, feeling a mix of relief and awe. "I will follow." With that, the creature stepped back, allowing me to pass. As I moved toward the passageway, I glanced back one last time. The creature watched me go, its eye glowing softly in the darkness. I knew that this encounter was just the beginning, that the true secrets of Calicrate's cave lay further ahead. The passageway was narrow and winding, forcing me to squeeze through tight spaces and navigate treacherous terrain. The air grew colder and more oppressive, and the sense of being watched never left me. I could feel the weight of the cave pressing down on me, as if it were alive and aware of my presence. After what felt like hours of crawling and climbing, I emerged into another chamber, even larger and more magnificent than the last. The walls were covered in ancient carvings and symbols, depicting scenes of worship and sacrifice. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone altar, its surface worn smooth by centuries of use. I approached the altar cautiously, my lantern casting eerie shadows on the walls. As I examined the carvings, I realized that they told a story, a history of the cave and the creature that guarded it. The images showed a civilization long forgotten, a people who had once lived in harmony with the creature, worshiping it as a god and protector. The more I studied the carvings, the more I understood. The creature was not a monster, but a guardian, entrusted with the protection of the cave's secrets. It had been revered and respected by the ancient people, who had built the altar as a symbol of their devotion. As I stood before the altar, I felt a sense of reverence and awe. This place was sacred, a testament to a lost civilization and their bond with the creature. I realized that my journey was not just about uncovering the mysteries of the cave, but about understanding the deeper connection between humanity and the ancient forces that shaped our world. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of purpose. I knew that my quest was far from over, that there were still many secrets to uncover and challenges to face. But I also knew that I was not alone. The creature was watching over me, guiding me on my path, and together, we would unravel the mysteries of Calicrate's cave. The realization that the creature was a guardian, rather than a monster, filled me with a renewed sense of purpose. As I stood before the ancient altar, I felt a deep connection to the past, to the people who had once revered this being and entrusted it with their secrets. The carvings on the walls told a story of a lost civilization, and I was determined to uncover every detail. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, then turned my attention to the vast chamber around me. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone, and the only sounds were the faint dripping of water and the echo of my footsteps. The carvings depicted scenes of daily life, rituals, and ceremonies, all centered around the creature. It was clear that this being had played a crucial role in their society. As I moved deeper into the chamber, I noticed a series of smaller passages branching off from the main hall. Each one seemed to lead to a different part of the cave, and I felt a sense of excitement at the prospect of exploring them all. I chose the passage that seemed the most promising, a narrow corridor adorned with intricate carvings and symbols. The passageway was tight and winding, forcing me to crouch and squeeze through narrow gaps. The walls were covered in more carvings, depicting scenes of worship and sacrifice. I could see the reverence and fear in the faces of the ancient people, their eyes wide with awe as they offered gifts to the creature. It was clear that they had seen it as both a protector and a deity. After what felt like an eternity of crawling and climbing, I emerged into another chamber. This one was smaller and more intimate, with a high ceiling and walls covered in ancient murals. The murals were faded and worn, but I could still make out the details of the scenes they depicted. They showed the creature in various poses, surrounded by worshippers and offerings. It was clear that this chamber had been a place of great significance, perhaps a temple or a shrine. In the center of the chamber stood a large stone pedestal, its surface covered in dust and debris. As I approached, I noticed a faint glimmer of light reflecting off something on the pedestal. My heart raced with anticipation as I brushed away the dust, revealing a small, intricately carved box. The box was made of a dark, polished wood, inlaid with gold and precious stones. It was a work of art, a testament to the skill and craftsmanship of the ancient people. I carefully lifted the box, feeling its weight in my hands. It was surprisingly heavy for its size, and I could feel something shifting inside as I moved it. My hands trembled with excitement as I opened the lid, revealing a collection of strange, glowing crystals. The crystals emitted a soft, pulsating light, casting an eerie glow on the walls of the chamber. I stared in awe at the crystals, wondering what they could be. They were unlike anything I had ever seen, their colors shifting and changing as they pulsed with an inner light. I could feel a strange energy emanating from them, a sense of power and mystery that sent shivers down my spine. As I examined the crystals, I noticed that each one was engraved with a different symbol. The symbols were similar to the ones I had seen on the walls of the cave, but more intricate and detailed. I realized that these crystals were not just decorative. They held some kind of significance, a deeper meaning that I needed to understand. I carefully placed the box back on the pedestal and took out my camera, documenting every detail of the chamber and the crystals. I knew that these images would be crucial in piecing together the story of the cave and its guardian. As I worked, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the creature was still observing me from the shadows. Once I had finished documenting the chamber, I decided to take a closer look at the murals. They were faded and worn, but I could still make out the details of the scenes they depicted. One mural showed the creature standing before a group of worshippers, its eye glowing with an intense light. The worshippers were kneeling, their hands raised in supplication, and I could see the fear and reverence in their faces. Another mural depicted a ritual sacrifice, with the creature standing over a stone altar. The altar was covered in offerings, and I could see the blood of the sacrifices staining the stone. It was a gruesome scene, but it also spoke to the power and importance of the creature in the lives of the ancient people. As I studied the murals, I began to piece together the story of the cave and its guardian. The creature had been a central figure in the lives of the ancient people, a being of immense power and wisdom. They had worshipped it, offered sacrifices to it, and entrusted it with their most precious secrets. The crystals were likely a part of that trust, a symbol of their devotion and reverence. I felt a deep sense of awe and respect for the creature and the people who had once lived in this cave. They had understood something that modern society had forgotten: the importance of respecting and honoring the ancient forces that shaped our world. I knew that my journey was far from over, that there were still many secrets to uncover and challenges to face. But I also knew that I was on the right path, guided by the wisdom of the past and the guardian of the cave. As I prepared to leave the chamber, I took one last look at the murals and the crystals. I knew that they held the key to understanding the mysteries of Calicrate's cave, and I was determined to unlock their secrets. With a renewed sense of purpose, I carefully packed up my gear and made my way back to the main chamber, ready to continue my journey into the depths of the cave. As I ventured deeper into the cave, the sense of awe and reverence I felt grew stronger. The discovery of the crystals and the murals had given me a glimpse into the lives of the ancient people who had once inhabited this place, and I was eager to learn more. The creature, which I had come to think of as a guardian rather than a monster, seemed to be guiding me, leading me toward the heart of the cave and the secrets it held. The passageway I followed was narrow and winding, forcing me to navigate through tight spaces and climb over jagged rocks. The air grew colder and more oppressive, and the sense of being watched never left me. I could feel the weight of the cave pressing down on me, as if it were alive and aware of my presence. After what felt like hours of crawling and climbing, I emerged into another chamber. This one was larger and more imposing than the previous ones, with high ceilings and walls covered in ancient carvings and symbols. In the center of the chamber stood a massive stone altar, its surface worn smooth by centuries of use. The altar was surrounded by a circle of glowing crystals, similar to the ones I had found earlier. As I approached the altar, I felt a strange energy emanating from the crystals. It was a powerful, almost tangible force that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I carefully placed my hand on one of the crystals, feeling its warmth and the faint vibration it emitted. The moment I touched it, a flood of images and sensations filled my mind. I saw visions of the ancient people, their lives and rituals, their hopes and fears. I saw the creature, standing tall and proud, its single eye glowing with an intense light. It was a being of immense power and wisdom, revered and respected by the people who had once lived in the cave. They had entrusted it with their most precious secrets, and it had guarded them faithfully for centuries. As the visions faded, I realized that the creature was not just a guardian, but a protector of the cave's secrets. It had been entrusted with the knowledge and wisdom of the ancient people, and it had kept that trust for countless generations. The crystals were a part of that trust, a symbol of the bond between the creature and the people who had once worshipped it. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of awe and reverence for the creature and the ancient people. I knew that my journey was far from over, that there were still many secrets to uncover and challenges to face. But I also knew that I was on the right path, guided by the wisdom of the past and the guardian of the cave. As I stood before the altar, I felt a presence behind me. I turned to see the creature standing at the entrance to the chamber, its eye glowing softly in the darkness. It was watching me, its gaze intense and unyielding. I felt a strange connection forming between us, a silent understanding that transcended language. The creature stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate. It raised one massive hand and pointed to the altar, then to the crystals surrounding it. I understood that it was showing me something important, something that I needed to see. I approached the altar, my heart pounding with anticipation. As I examined the carvings and symbols, I noticed a small, hidden compartment beneath the altar. I carefully opened it, revealing a large, glowing crystal. This crystal was different from the others. It was larger and emitted a more intense light. It pulsed with a powerful energy, filling the chamber with a soft, radiant glow. I reached out and touched the crystal, feeling its warmth and the faint vibration it emitted. The moment I touched it, a flood of images and sensations filled my mind. I saw visions of the ancient people, their lives and rituals, their hopes and fears. I saw the creature, standing tall and proud, its single eye glowing with an intense light. It was a being of immense power and wisdom, revered and respected by the people who had once lived in the cave. They had entrusted it with their most precious secrets, and it had guarded them faithfully for centuries. As the visions faded, I realized that the creature was not just a guardian, but a protector of the cave's secrets. It had been entrusted with the knowledge and wisdom of the ancient people, and it had kept that trust for countless generations. The crystals were a part of that trust, a symbol of the bond between the creature and the people who had once worshipped it. The creature stepped closer, its eye fixed on the crystal in my hand. I could feel its presence, its power, and its wisdom. It was as if the creature was communicating with me, sharing its knowledge and understanding. I felt a deep sense of connection and respect for the creature, and I knew that I had been chosen to carry on its legacy. I carefully placed the crystal back in the compartment and closed it, feeling a sense of reverence and awe. The creature nodded, as if acknowledging my understanding and acceptance of the responsibility. I knew that my journey was far from over, that there were still many secrets to uncover and challenges to face. But I also knew that I was not alone. The creature was watching over me, guiding me on my path. As I prepared to leave the chamber, I took one last look at the altar and the crystals. I knew that they held the key to understanding the mysteries of Calicrate's cave, and I was determined to unlock their secrets. With a renewed sense of purpose, I carefully packed up my gear and made my way back to the main chamber. ready to continue my journey into the depths of the cave. The creature followed me, its presence a comforting reminder of the bond we had formed. I knew that it would continue to guide me, to protect me, and to share its wisdom. Together, we would uncover the secrets of Callicrate's cave and ensure that the knowledge and wisdom of the ancient people were preserved for future generations. As I emerged from the chamber and made my way back through the winding passages, I felt a sense of peace and purpose. The cave was no longer a place of fear and mystery, but a sacred space filled with history and wisdom. I knew that my journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by the guardian of Callicrate's cave and the ancient wisdom it protected. Emerging from the depths of Callicrate's cave felt like stepping out of a dream. The transition from the oppressive darkness and ancient mysteries of the cave to the bright, sunlit world outside was almost overwhelming. I blinked against the sudden glare, taking a moment to adjust to the light and the fresh, crisp air. The journey had changed me in ways I was only beginning to understand, and I knew that I could never look at the world the same way again. The creature, the guardian of the cave, stood at the entrance, watching me with its single, glowing eye. There was a sense of finality in its gaze, as if it were acknowledging the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I felt a deep sense of gratitude and respect for the creature, knowing that it had shared its wisdom and secrets with me. It had entrusted me with a great responsibility, and I was determined to honor that trust. "Thank you," I said softly, my voice filled with emotion. "I will not forget what you have shown me." The creature nodded slowly, its eye glowing with a soft, gentle light. Then, with a final, deliberate movement, it turned and disappeared back into the shadows of the cave. I watched it go, feeling a mix of sadness and resolve. The cave and its guardian would always be a part of me, a constant reminder of the journey I had undertaken and the knowledge I had gained. As I made my way back down the mountain, my mind was filled with thoughts of the ancient people and the secrets they had entrusted to the creature. The crystals, the murals, the altar, all of it pointed to a civilization that had understood the importance of wisdom and respect for the natural world. They had revered the creature not as a monster, but as a protector and guide, a being of immense power and knowledge. I knew that my mission was far from over. The knowledge and wisdom I had gained in the cave needed to be preserved and shared with the world. But I also knew that I had to be careful. The power of the crystals and the secrets of the cave could be dangerous in the wrong hands. It was my responsibility to ensure that they were used wisely and with respect. When I finally reached the village, it was late afternoon. The familiar streets and buildings felt both comforting and strange, as if I were seeing them for the first time. I made my way to my parents' house, eager to share my experiences with them. As I approached the front door, my mother, Mary, opened it, her face lighting up with relief and joy. "John, thank God you're safe," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight embrace. "We were so worried about you." "I'm fine, Mom," I said, hugging her back. "I have so much to tell you." My father, Robert, appeared in the doorway, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "Welcome back, son. Did you find what you were looking for?" I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. "Yes, Dad. I found more than I ever imagined." We sat down in the living room, and I began to recount my journey into the cave. I told them about the creature, the ancient murals, the glowing crystals, and the sense of awe and reverence I had felt. My parents listened intently, their faces reflecting a range of emotions, fear, wonder, and pride. "This is incredible, John," my father said, his voice filled with awe. "You've uncovered something truly remarkable, but it's also a great responsibility," I added, my tone serious. "The knowledge and power of the cave must be protected and respected. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands." My mother nodded, her eyes filled with concern. "What will you do now?" "I need to document everything I've found," I replied. "The photos, the notes, the crystals, they all need to be studied and preserved. But I also need to ensure that the cave and its secrets remain protected. The creature is still there, guarding the cave, but we need to respect its role and the wisdom it holds." Over the next few weeks, I dedicated myself to this task, I carefully cataloged the photos and notes I had taken, creating a detailed record of my journey and the discoveries I had made. I reached out to experts in archaeology and ancient history, seeking their guidance and support. I knew that the knowledge of Callicrate's cave was too important to keep to myself, but I also understood the need for caution and respect. I also spent time reflecting on my experiences and the lessons I had learned. The journey had changed me in profound ways, deepening my appreciation for the natural world and the wisdom of ancient civilizations. I felt a renewed sense of purpose and responsibility, a commitment to preserving and honoring the knowledge I had gained. One evening, as I was reviewing my notes, I received a call from Mark, my best friend. "Hey John, I've been hearing some wild stories about your adventure. Is it true? Did you really find a creature in that cave?" I smiled, feeling a sense of camaraderie and excitement. "Yes, Mark, it's all true. And there's so much more to the story. We need to talk." Mark came over that night, and we spent hours discussing my journey and the discoveries I had made. He was fascinated and eager to help, offering his support and resources. Together, we began to develop a plan to protect and share the knowledge of Callicrate's cave, ensuring that it would be respected and preserved for future generations. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, my mission continued to evolve. I worked with experts, researchers, and local authorities to establish protections for the cave and its guardian. We created educational programs and exhibits to share the knowledge and wisdom of the ancient people, fostering a deeper appreciation for their culture and the natural world. Through it all, I felt a deep sense of connection to the cave and its guardian. The journey had transformed me, opening my eyes to the importance of respect, wisdom, and the interconnectedness of all things. I knew that my work was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, guided by the lessons I had learned and the bond one had formed with the guardian of Callicrate's cave. As I stood at the entrance of the cave one last time, looking out over the valley below, I felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. The cave was no longer a place of fear and mystery, but a sacred space filled with history and wisdom. I knew that the journey had changed me forever, and I was grateful for the experience and the knowledge I had gained. With a renewed sense of purpose, I turned and walked back down the mountain, ready to continue my mission and share the wisdom of Callicrate's cave with the world.